Let's talk about the habits that are going to make the biggest impact on our lives in 2025. Now, last year, I was able to achieve quite a lot. And a lot of that came down to habit formation, right? Things that were built into my routine, into my way of thinking that allowed me to consistently progress towards my goals. And that's the thing about habits, right? We can set goals and that's lovely. But in order to see the progress we want, it takes consistency. And that's why habits are so powerful because they become embedded in us, right? They become almost automatic by nature. And so they allow us to continue progressing as time goes on when things are hard or when we don't feel like it because they become part of our identity. So I'm going to split this video into three parts. The first is going to be incredibly impactful habits from last year, things that I saw working for me and others. The second is things that we're leaving behind, bad habits or not so impactful habits that a lot of us have picked up, myself included, that we really need to leave behind if we're trying to see progress in 2025. And the third is new ones that I haven't necessarily done routinely or picked up, but that I think will be worthwhile in 2025 for seeing change and seeing a turnaround and progress. So let's just get into it. The first habit on this list is swapping out music for podcasts. Now, I have become almost a podcast addict, and it's one of my favorite ways of consuming information right now is through listening to podcasts. Now, I'm not the biggest music fan anyway, but I do like listening to it when I'm working out and so forth. But I realized other times when I'm at home or when I'm doing some tasks that don't require me to focus, in terms of my brain, it's just more like cleaning or just moving around the house, getting ready. Listening to a podcast is a way for me to get valuable information without me necessarily having to set aside time for reading, which we'll talk about later and so forth. Consuming podcasts over music and getting into the habit of reaching for podcasts and, really densely packed, really high information, high quality sources over just always going straight to music has been really great for me. And I think it's something that I will definitely continue in the 2025 and in this upcoming year. If you're interested in some of the podcasts or longer YouTube videos that I've been watching, then I'll leave a few of them around here and in the description as well. The second habit that we're taking into the new year, because of just how impactful it was, is using AI to simplify tasks and automate work. AI is here now. A lot of us have already started playing with it, and it's been refreshing to see it feature in personal development so much on YouTube now. I remember initially speaking about this a couple of years ago, and it didn't have that much traction, but I'm so happy to see that people are using this tool for whatever it is they're trying to achieve. But I think embedding it as a habit, knowing that you have this tool in the same way you might have the habit of going to Google to search for something when you don't know, right, is the same way that you can form this habit of saying, I have a task, right, that I think that I can use AI to help automate some of that workload for me, right? Shift that workload over into AI when I can work on the other things, the more creative things that only I as a human being with my brain, with my experiences know how to do. All the other tasks can go over to AI. And I think that habit and formulating almost a workflow around AI and the things you're trying to achieve is a great way to move faster in this world. Now, the third habit I'm taking with me is morning pages. I've spoken before on this channel how I've sometimes struggled with journaling and journaling with prompts and so forth. But I found over the last year that the most consistent I've ever been with journaling or just writing down your thoughts in the morning is using the morning pages method. And it's from the book, The Artist's Way. But all it is just a brain dump. And I think there was something very freeing about it. Really doesn't matter what you write. It doesn't have to be insightful. It doesn't have to be about a specific, just write what's in your head. And I think for an introvert like me who can be in their head so much, like I spend so much time up here that it can be really, really important for me to get that out. So it's one thing, to communicate it with others, but just having that time with myself in the morning to be like, oh, what's in my head? Get it down. It leaves space for you to work on the other things, right? Because you dump all those things in your brain onto the paper in the morning, then you have freed your mind to think about other things. Whereas usually you're kind of circulating those same ideas in your head from the time you've woken up and you haven't really let yourself let them go. Now, the next thing on my list is, I guess, an anti-habit or something I don't do. And it's not listening to the news. Now, I think there'll probably be maybe some contention over this. Some people believe in watching the news every single day. I deleted the news app about 3 years ago from my phone. I am not interested in being notified by these major news outlets about what's going on in the world, largely because a lot of the news cycle is driven by negative stories, right? They are able to get viewerships in through feeding off people's fear a lot of the time. And that's not to say that all news is bad news and it's not important to stay in touch in reality, but you can opt into the news versus it being something that you just wake up and have to be kind of confronted with, right? You don't have any control over what in news you're interacting with, what's the best for you, and then what you can actually take action with. Because what I found, and by observing the people around me, was that the news was causing people to be stressed and anxious. right? They would wake up, they would see these stories, sometimes from places that were far removed from them. And now they're carrying this with them throughout the day, but they haven't done anything with it, right? They haven't been able to make any impact. All that's happened actually is their lives have been negatively impacted. Whereas I feel the way that I've been approaching this over the few years is I can opt in. It doesn't mean that I don't engage with social and political and so forth, those kind of things, and try to be aware of what's going on. But then I can choose what I opt into, and then I can actually make informed decisions about what I want to do next, if anything, right? Sometimes it's just information so that you know what's going on. Sometimes it's like, I want to spend more time diving deeper into this around this particular set of events and then impact it in X way through charity or through, donations or through content or whatever the medium is. Physical assist is regular walking, like walks outside, walking on the treadmill, although walking outside is, I believe, superior. But just walking, so many benefits to walking. Obviously, in terms of cardio, it's a good light or low impact form of cardio. So if you are you have fitness goals, but also if you sit at your desk all day, like making sure you go for those walks allows your body to move. Like, I'm really worried. Sometimes I think about it, like the amount of hours spent at the desk and all of the problems that are pending perhaps for our generation, people who are stuck to their desk so much about their backs and, just their overall health is worrying. Walking is a fantastic way to get your body moving without it being super intense, like, lifting and so forth. And there's also all of these other benefits with walking, which is like giving your mind the room and the time to think about ideas that you have. And I've spoken about this, I won't go into too much depth about creativity. Then there's the idea that you actually can use that time to habit stack. So I spoke about podcasts, but you can take a walk, right? So you're getting your steps in, getting some movement, getting away from your desk, but also you're going to listen to a podcast at the same time so you can get some interesting information. And not every walk has to be like this, right? Some walks will be in silence because it'll be beneficial. Some might be music that has instrumentals, so not so much talking. Sometimes it will be just music, and other times it will be podcasts. But you can stack other things on top of walking, so you're doing multiple things at once. I think that walking is just great. Like, there's a reason why people keep banging on about walking. The next habit is regular digital audits and purging. One thing that I did quite a lot last year is as soon as I started to feel like my feed, whether it was on Instagram, whether it was on YouTube, whatever the platform was starting to veer off what I wanted to do and where I was trying to go, it's time to purge, right? So you audit what it is, what you are seeing, right? The kind of accounts you're interacting with, what's coming up. And it's time to purge the things and remove and unfollow people who are no longer in line with what you're trying to achieve, or, click not interested, do not show channel, whatever it is, so that you can bring yourself back on course. Sometimes, and it happens to all of us, it's easy to start getting distracted by all these things that are in front of you. And then your digital environment no longer aligns with what you're trying to achieve. And like I've said before, we spend so much time here that it's important that we cultivate it in a meaningful way. So I think the habit of regular audits of your digital space and purging, very key, taking that into the new year. The next one for me is a simple skincare routine. What has been fantastic for me this year is beef tallow or beef dripping. I was first introduced to this maybe 3 or 4 years ago, right? Using beef dripping, which is, it's just a natural fat effectively on your skin. And there's been few times where this has come in and out of fashion and trend, but I have found that this year, just kind of spending most of the year with this particular product as the center and the nutrients that you get from it and the moisture has been really, really good for my skin. I have also saved, I think I've saved thousands of pounds by not overdoing the skincare stuff, like actually thousands of pounds. I know because I have been the opposite of this, where I've had a million products. And it's only now I'm starting to reintroduce maybe some serums, but for the most part, beef dripping and beef tallow is still the core, so I'll be continuing that in 2025. No surprises here if you've been on my channel, but the next habit we're taking with us is a strength routine. Lifting. We're still lifting. We've been lifting for like 10 years now. Damn, 10 years. Okay, 8 years, right, since the beginning of my 20s. But we've been lifting for a while, and we will continue to lift, right? Lifting ourselves up by the barbell. I don't really need to explain too much about this, I don't think. I think a lot of us now understand the benefits of strength training. I don't worry so much, I think, about, I just want my glutes to be bigger. That's something that I think younger me was more interested in focusing on. And that's not to say that we're not trying to build a shelf, but what I am saying, though, is like, if I can get my 4 strength training sessions in a week, I'm very happy. In fact, I'm very, very happy. And so that's been good for me, and I will continue that. I actually want to be more militant about it, actually. So those 4 are done, and everything else that I do, which I am introducing other exercises like aerial yoga, but we'll talk about that later, they come around that. The next habit is reading. Oh, not surprised again, but reading has been good for me. I didn't read as much in 2024 as I thought I would. I read quite a few books, but I want to get back into it a little bit more. And again, so that will be like something that I'm taking into 2025 with a bit more intensity. I, again, have spoken a lot about the amount of information that is condensed in a book, right? And that you get access to the experiences, the knowledge, the life of somebody. You pick it up, you have 200, 300, however many pages to get through, and you get to absorb all of that. I also don't want to exclude fiction books. Now, I used to love fiction books when I was younger, and I have quite a few on my bookshelf that I want to get into this year. So a mix of non-fiction, self-help, personal development that I love and continue to read. But I also want to read more fiction. I want to engage my mind in that way. And so we're taking that reading habit and intensifying it in the new year. So the final thing in this category of habits that we're taking from 2024 into 2025 is gratitude. And this has become easier because of the morning pages, that journaling that I do in the morning. Is time for me to also reflect on what I have. Now, I have been abundantly blessed. I think a lot of us have, but sometimes we just forget it, right? But taking that time out with myself in the morning is a period for me to reflect on not just what's in my head and, what I want and so forth, but also what I'm grateful for. Now, I didn't force this in terms of a journal prompt. It's just something that has come about when I'm writing. Like I feel like this, not compulsion almost, right? To be grateful for what I have around me and what I've been able to build and what I have been blessed to build. So now let's talk about habits we're leaving behind, because as much as I have developed and cultivated and continued with some great habits, there are some that have creeped in that I'm not happy with and that I think are holding myself and a lot of other people back. The first habit, or normalization, is that of sugar consumption throughout the day. A lot of us are addicted to sugar. I think most of us are addicted to sugar, actually, right? There is this legal substance that is highly addictive, and yet there are multiple studies showing the kind of havoc it can wreak on the body in intense quantities. And yet we are going throughout the day, a morning, we're having a coffee, if you go to Starbucks or somewhere like that, and adding all these things to your drink, right? Or if you have anything with any sauce, it's added to that. A lot of the foods, look at the food packets, right? If anything has been processed even slightly, right, the likelihood that there's been sugar added is quite high. And the impacts that this is having on everything from physique and health to clarity of mind is ridiculous at this point. Right? I can find myself crashing. I had these highs and these lows because of the sugar intake that I had last year at times, right? Like, I'm not saying I was like putting 5 teaspoons of sugar in my tea and stuff like that. But like I said, it can creep up on you and it becomes habitual. Like, it just forms part of your routine, part of your diet effectively. And I think we have to come to a point where we're like so conscious of this in order to reverse the damage that has been done psychologically and the normalization of sugar intake. I don't talk too much about nutrition on this because I think it's rather a personal matter. But I think the general consensus about sugar is across the board. And there's enough scientific data right now that shows in excess, right? And excess is a lot lower than we think. It is causing a lot of damage. Next on this list is suboptimal use of social media. What I mean by this is I have a YouTube addiction. I said it. I have a YouTube addiction. I watch it all the time. And now I just spoke about like the pros around using podcasts and long form content. And so this isn't to say that I don't think there is a lot of value. Of course there is. I'm literally here recording a video as we speak. However, I have got into the habit of watching it at times when I shouldn't, like in bed. What am I doing watching a 1.5 hour podcast on business and, I'm supposed to be going to sleep. Now I haven't went to sleep right. And now the mornings, like so many things, my sleep's been impacted because obviously you have to get up for work and all the things I have to do, right? Like the actual quality of my sleep, right? There's studies to show that what you're doing before you sleep can impact the actual quality and the depth of your sleep. Like so many things. So it's like, not that YouTube or social media in general, because mine is YouTube, right? And for you, it may be something else like TikTok and so forth. Improper use of these tools and these platforms and sources of information can end up negatively impacting other parts of your life, like sleep, which we know how important sleep is to health, to mental and cognitive functions. We know this, and yet we are still playing around with it, still playing around with sleep. Like she isn't the top dog. Like next to like nutrition and exercise, sleep isn't up there. There's a reason we have to sleep so many hours a day and we're playing with it. And it's no longer enough to say, oh, it's YouTube, it's educational. It's not like, yeah, I'm not on Instagram, I'm not on TikTok, I'm on YouTube learning. Yeah, but not at 11 o'clock at night. It's just we're leaving it behind. The next habit that I think a lot of us have fallen into is taking on ideas, frameworks, and actually other people's habits that don't do well for us. And this is something that I wanted to speak about in context of the video that I'm making, and any video that you see on habits and, things in general, is what works for others may not work for you. And just because you see something that somebody else is doing, you can try it out, you can experiment with it, you can research more, but that doesn't mean you have to force it into your life. And I think a lot of us have got into the habit of doing that. Oh, well, if they're doing it, then I have to do it. And then that's not necessarily the case. For example, waking up at 5 a.m., I don't think is ideal for me. I just don't think that routine where I work, the hours I work, when my body actually wants to go to the gym and train, waking up at 5 a.m. doesn't make the most sense to me. And yet, that's been pushed down our throats quite a lot. I mean, that's just one example. There's loads of different examples of habits and ways of life and living that people have spoken about that are not ideal for us. And I just realized my phone's been there the whole bloody time. It's been there the whole time. And I just don't think that's how we should continue on with our lives, right? It has become habitual. It has become like almost instinctual that see someone else do it, especially someone we respect, and take it on board. Like, I realize my body and my workout sessions, if they are weight-based, are really good late morning to early afternoon. But if I go with the routine that I have to wake up at 5 a.m. and then be at the gym for 6 a.m., now I'm pushing in through a leg routine at 6 a.m., even though I know my body has actually pulled me optimal later from all of the data I have collected. So I'm ignoring the data that I have on my own body. It's not a great habit, I don't think, and a lot of us have formed it, and it's time to move on from that. It's time to leave there in 2024. And the final one that I'm leaving behind, and I think perhaps you might want to leave behind, is shopping without intention. And I think over 2024, I got quite good at not just buying like online, mainly because I can't be bothered to scroll through all the pages. And I also stopped shopping at a lot of fast fashion stores online. But I developed this really weird habit I noticed of always going into a Zara if I pass one. Okay, not always, but often going into Zara and picking something up. Why was I picking something up? I didn't even intend on going Zara sometimes. Or sometimes I did, and I would just pick something up for the sake of I guess I could wear this one point in one video, but I wasn't thinking intentionally about the item that I was wearing or that I was buying and how this would fit into, the rest of my wardrobe and the outfits and what I actually like wearing. For you, it may be something else, right? It may be another store, maybe online shopping. But I definitely think we are entering a phase where our intentions around our spending and our consumption is, coming to the forefront. But this weird Zara thing is a sign of something that could creep up and that I don't want to get worse or spiral out of control. And I just think in general, I didn't want to touch on this idea of consumption and overconsumption in general. Now I'm going to talk about some of the new habits that I want to form in 2025 that I believe will allow me to push through to the next point of my life. And again, I think some of these will be fitting for you as well. The first one is financial investing. Now I've dabbled with this throughout the years, but never seriously enough. Right? And sometimes I could argue that's access to information, whatever reason. The reality is, this needs to become a habit like any other habit, right? The habit of investing money and putting money away, whatever financial instrument I decide to invest in, but having that grow over time. Being in my 20s and my late 20s now, I'm starting to think about, what does the rest of my life look like? And how can I use and leverage investing to make that life a reality? And it's one of the reasons why, if you're watching this, the video might already be out, but I actually recorded a conversation I had with a wealth manager so that we can understand about investing in wealth management in a little bit more depth, because I think it's a conversation that's missing from the personal development space, and especially women in personal development, which is why I had that conversation. But investing, making it a habit. Every month you get paid, right? You put money in savings. A lot of us are even quite good at saving, but this investment portion is missing, and it needs to become a habit. It needs to become instinctual. The next habit is daily creation. Very simple, but I want to create something every single day, right? I want to be in my creation producing bag and not just my consumption bag. And for me, that is going to include anything from content creation to sketches to painting, anything that is me creating something from either my ideas or my physical hands or whatever it is, that is it. And it doesn't really matter how small or big it is. I just want to create every day. I want to use what I've been blessed with as a human being, the ability to create, to take ideas in my head, make them a reality using video, using text, using paints, whatever it is, and just get into the rhythm of that. And kind of following on from that, in terms of creation, is the habit of a consistent content schedule and routine. If you've noticed, maybe you haven't, but I have become more consistent on YouTube towards the end of 2024. specifically posting every Sunday. And I realized I need to get myself into a habit, because I've tried to do this on and off, throughout the years, but I couldn't get into a rhythm. And I realized it's because I wasn't looking at it like a habit I needed to form, right? A habit of there being a video out that I upload, every Sunday that's ready to go. And also with LinkedIn. So I'm posting every weekday on LinkedIn as well. And so forming these new habits that I want to become embedded into my life, so that I know, right? It's not just a clunky thing, like, oh no, when's the YouTube video going to come? Or when am I going to? I know it's a habit, it's a routine, it's scheduled. I know when these things are going to happen, and therefore becomes easier to consistently work through them throughout the year. I'll try and speed through these last ones, but the next one is meal planning. Not prepping, but meal planning. The reason why I think this is obviously so important is because, one, if you have specific nutrition goals, like protein and stuff like that, planning your meals is really important in knowing what you're going to go to the shop and buy. I am sick and tired of going to the grocery store or, getting a delivery 3 times a week. And that's what it is. It's become like, oh, forgot this, or, oh, I don't have enough protein in my house because I haven't thought about the meals I'm going to eat throughout the week. Or, I'm hungry and now I've got to go for something that isn't what I wanted to do or eat in terms of my nutrition, my macros, my protein, fats and so forth, because I'm not really thinking about it. I'm not thinking about it at the beginning of the week and what I need, sourcing that and having myself ready in that sense. Next, we have a nighttime routine. As you can see with my whole YouTube issue and it impacting my sleep, I'm realizing I need a solid night routine. And I'll probably make another video on this and maybe go through my nighttime routine. But I am realizing sleep is so imperative. High quality sleep impacts the rest of the day, impacts my creativity, impacts my productivity, impacts my irritability, right? Like, I don't want to be an irritable person because I didn't sleep enough because I was on YouTube, or because I don't have a routine, to wind down, prep my body for sleep. So the formation and the habitual nature of a nighttime routine is something I'm working on in 2025. Then we have stretching, which I feel like I put on my list every year, and every year I fail. And it's because stretching is boring. I find stretching boring, I'm going to be honest with you. But one thing that has been helping me, and which is why I'm going to be incorporating this in my routine throughout, is doing exercises that are a bit more fun but involve stretching. So I've been going to aerial yoga. You probably know what that is, or maybe you don't. And I'm booked in for that every single week. Every single week I'm going to aerial yoga, at least in Q1. But I also go to Pilates. Like, that's something that's offered as part of my gym. So it's not like I buy that separately. I just need to book in. Doing activities that are fun and also stretching, I think, is the way for me to make this a habit. I would love to be the person who does like a 10-minute, 20-minute stretch routine every day. And I eventually want to get to that point, because I think stretching should become a part of your daily routine for all the benefits, right? Again, even when I was saying about the fear about what's going to happen to us sitting down all the time and being at our desks, stretching should be something that is just built into life. But this is how I'm starting off. The final one that I want to talk about is systematic and consistent reviews. So I think I'm quite good at tracking on a day-to-day basis, or ad hoc, right? Which is like, oh, I'm checking my YouTube analytics or my LinkedIn analytics, or, I have a little checkbox on Notion about what I've done during the day and so forth. But somewhere along those lines, it can become just like almost analyzing on a day-to-day basis, but not being able to step back and look at the big picture. Sometimes I can do it, but I want to make it a habit. So you may already do a lot of these things that I've spoken about, just like I do, but you haven't made it a habit yet. That's why I keep coming back to habitual, which means it's just automatic almost. It's part of your routine and your life. And so I'm going to set aside on one day of the month, around the last day of the month, or the last Sunday of the month, just going through the key categories of my life, the goals that I have set, and how I am tracking. A review of that and how I'm feeling about things. Do things need to be updated? Right? I think the review process is an important part of goals and goal setting that a lot of us kind of miss out on. So those are the habits. Those are the ones that worked, ones that did not, we need to get rid of them, and some of the ones that we're taking into the new year. So yeah, hope you liked it. I'm interested, what are your kind of top habits? Because I don't want you to listen to my list and think, oh, I have to do everything at once, or even take anything away. Right? Like I said, getting rid of that habit of just doing what people do online or say online, and actually formulating your own core values, your own core habits that work for you and what you're trying to achieve, I think is very key. And I'll see you in the next video.